Hello and welcome to a fresh episode of the Camera Lounge. And you see that we're in a different setting today. We're somewhere in the city of Lagos. We are in the studio of one of your favorite photographers, amazing photographers here in the city of Lagos. I'm Olukayode Alayande, welcoming you to the show. I'll be introducing our guest in just a moment. Stay with us. Lights, camera, action. All right, welcome back. It's time to meet our guest on the Camera Lounge today, and he's no other than the lead photographer at Image Faculty here in Lagos. He's first of all an educator, and that's one of the reasons that a lot of photographers in the country love him. He's a master teacher, but again, he's also a master retoucher, amongst several other things that he does. Welcome with me to the Camera Lounge, Idongesit Usange.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, so let's start from the very top, not essentially in the sequence of things, how they've gone in your life and career, but at the top in terms of relevance and being known. In 2015, one of your works was featured in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Okay, so then in 2015, I was hired by the then governor of my state, His Excellency, the former governor of Akwa Ibom State, Godswill Akpabio, to photograph an event which was supposed to earn the state an award in the Guinness Books of Record. And for some reason, I think due to the issues that we had in Nigeria then, security issues, the Guinness Book of Records, the team were unable to come to Nigeria. So they sent in a brief, for someone who would be able to take pictures of the event. So it was a 5,500 singers. I can't remember the exact numbers.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so that all they wanted was just an image, right? And then the governor set out and put it out for people but nobody was able to interpret the brief. So somewhere in their meeting in the government house, somebody mentioned my name and said, this young man will be able to interpret this brief. And they said for me, and they called me up, and I went. It was more like a booklet, very intimidating.
The brief?
Yes. So when I picked it up, I read through it, and all they were looking for was just in one sentence. But it was very elaborate, and I'm sure that's what scared a lot of people. So I read through it, and I discovered what they were looking for is just a click, just one click that can show the 5,500 singers. You have to shoot them in one click. And it was very scary because at some point, the guy who had linked me up to the government had told me that his job is at stake. If I know I can't do it, I should just tell him I can't do it, And I told him it's not an issue. I was very confident of, delivering the job because I knew what they wanted. So I on that day, if I may explain how I shot it. So
Please go ahead.
Yeah. On that day, we had like the whole choir. It was filled up like in a stadium, and I went there with my assistant, and all I did was just had a fish eye lens with me, put it on a monopod,
Must be a fisheye.
Then I stepped back to the top floor of the stadium, raised the monopod all the way up, put the camera on timer, and then it clicked everything. That was all I did. And when I was done, I came down and I told them I was done. They said, no, you can't be done. It's not possible. What did you shoot with? I said, this is all. They said, no, this is not going to fly. I told them, if it doesn't fly, do whatever you want to do to me. But I'm telling you that this is what they want. There was a lot of back and forth, a lot of arguments, but I was confident because I know whatever security system they want to put it through, whatever software they want to put it through, because I know they will always do that background check.
Yeah, they will test it.
Yeah, I know it will fly. So I submitted the images and they took it to the UK, to the Guinness Book of Records office. And then a week later, we got the good news.
All right, I've read everywhere, more than one publication, in fact, several publications described you as that one photographer that revolutionized photography in Akwa Ibom State. When they say that, what do they mean?
So basically, I don't know what their mindset is.
Yeah, you can be humble, I know.
Yeah, but I'm going to explain from my perspective what I saw, what I felt, So in 2010, I went to film school and I was back to the country with just a camera, the Canon 7D at the time. And I didn't have the resources, but I just decided to take pictures because I couldn't fund the film thing. So I had to start taking pictures.
There in Mumbai?
No, here in Nigeria.
Okay,
when I came back,
you returned.
Yes. So photography was, let me explain it this way. So the charges was like 100 Nigerian naira for 3 images. That was what the charge was in 2010 in my city. And I came back and I said I was going to set up something, not a studio, something, because I couldn't even afford a studio at the time. So I was going to set up something and I'm going to be charging 6,000 naira for an image. Everybody, family members, friends, everybody, church members, everybody was against it. It wasn't going to be possible. And I said, why? Because what I have upstairs is different from what the guy who's charging 100 naira is charging. And they said it wasn't never, ever going to be possible. I remember, I don't want to mention names, but I remember the guy who was leading in the city at that time in photography. I went to seek his consent. And he told me, Smart, I think you should go and work in a photo studio. And I told him why. He said, I don't think this thing you're thinking would work. I said, okay, that's fine. And I left. I was kind of depressed, when he said so, because I had a second thought. But again, I was confident because of where I was coming from and the knowledge I had. So I set that thing up upstairs and I started charging 6,000 naira. And then I had my first clients on the road. All the transaction was, because there was no office. So we were like, okay, we were just talking on the road and I sealed everything. Where's your office? It's down the road. And then we just went like that and the person paid for the shoot. And I rented a studio then and I did a shoot. Okay, so when they say...
So you rented a studio?
Yes, I did rent a studio. I said then, when people say I changed the whole thing in the industry, it's because, I think it's because of the pricing. Everybody was a low budget photographer and I came out and I decided to charge extremely very expensive. 6,000 was a very expensive amount then. So, and then I increased it from 6,000 to 10,000, from 10,000 to 15, from 15 to 25, from 25 to 35. As at 35,000 naira, no one was able to afford me. And then came the need for me to relocate to Lagos.
All right, great. So, we've gone so far into your story. Let's backtrack a little bit. And what's your background? How did you grow up? Share with us a little bit of what your early years were.
Okay, so early years was a bit traumatic for me. I grew up a family of, it's difficult to say, I don't know what to say, five, or I should say three. Or at the time, we were three. Then later on, I realized we were more than three after my secondary school, I guess. So, my father was also in the media. My mom was a teacher, and then she became a banker, then Mercantile Bank. And so it was a very sweet family till it became sour. As a story I always like to say anywhere, anytime, because I'm not ashamed of it. I want people to learn, because I'm sure there are a lot of photographers who are from broken homes. And being from a broken home it's a template or a default template for you to lose hope and lose confidence, you know. So at some point my parents split, you know, the family was gone and we were left to struggle. And somehow we did struggle it all through, you know, our years in school. And luckily for I and my immediate junior brother, we were on scholarship throughout our secondary school, you know. And it got to the point where we had to get into university and it became tougher. And that's because the funds were not available. And well, we did attempt severally to get into university. I remember then I attended the Polytechnic in my city. I didn't like it, but I had to because that's what I could afford then. So when I was done, after my 2 years in diploma, they call it, I took the results of my diploma to my dad and I showed it to him. He's late now. And I told him, I'm done with school, but this is not what I want. And I tore it before him. I tore the certificate before him. A lot of people don't even know I had done a diploma course because I don't, unless I'm telling my story, I tell people I tore it because I knew I wanted something great, you know. We're all supposed to school abroad, but because the family was scattered, we couldn't do that anymore. So I tore that certificate and I went to work in a cyber cafe. And as a then my salary was 3,000. I did the job for like 3 years and saved enough money for me to attend a private university. In my year 2 in the university, I discovered there was something funny about the institution that I wasn't comfortable with, and I left. I left the system, came back, and I decided to work again to raise money for the next institution that I was going to go to. And then I was able to raise enough funds to, you know, after some years, to attend the University of Uyo where I studied marketing. And when I was done going through school, the university, I discovered photography, you know, which I knew this is my calling, this is what I need to do. So I decided, after then, I was working and I was schooling. So when I was done, I had saved all my salary and I decided to fund myself to a film school in India in 2010. So when I was done, I came back home and I met my father and I gave him an international certificate and I gave him a local certificate. I said, this is what I've been able to achieve on my own. You know, as I then, I would say I was the first graduate in my family.
Share that experience of the grueling discipline that you had to go through to ensure that that dream came true.
Well, I think that's where a lot of young creatives are missing out, because we always feel like, oh, I can write a proposal, I can write a business plan and submit it somewhere for people to. I've done all that until I realized that you can actually fund what you want and get to a certain level. You need to start up to a certain level and then somebody sees what you're doing and then decides to fund you. So the experience could be very painful because you have a lot of things you may want, you wish, you know, to get, but then you have to discipline yourself enough not to get them. Everybody knows me. Anybody who knows me too well knows I don't joke with footwears. I don't, I, I don't joke with them. I can attempt to buy something and you tell me the price and I can negotiate with you to get whatever I want to buy. But when it comes to footwears, I don't, if I like it, I buy it.
I can see.
So at that point, why I'm using footwear as an example, because there's an incident that happened sometime when I was working somewhere. I didn't have the flips like this, let's put it this way, the palms, the thing that guys wear. I didn't have shoes, not to talk of a palm slippers to wear to work. And I borrowed a friend of mine who I was living with. I was living with his brother. So I borrowed his shoe, his slippers, and I went to work. And then before one, he was in my office to come and get the slippers. It was a very painful experience because not that I didn't have enough money to fund the shoe, but I was saving for a project, which was going to school. Okay, so that had taught me because it's painful in the beginning, but it's very, very interesting in the end. So having gone through that experience, that process, that had been my guide all through. Anytime I want to get to the next level, I deprive myself of certain things. Initially, like I said, I used to, talk to this friend, talk to this one, they will be able to raise money, No. There's no need wearing like a typical incident. Somebody comes here and tells me he needs support because a lot of photographers come to me, they need support to get a camera, and I'm saying, that's nice. So what camera do you use now? Do you want to upgrade or you don't have a camera at all? And he says, he doesn't even have a camera. He shows me his work. He's trying with his phone. He wants to buy a camera and thinks he can do great. And it's an excellent thing to help people if you have the resources. And then suddenly his phone rings. And then he brings it, sorry, can I just pick a call? I say, it's fine. And he brings out his phone and it's an iPhone 11. I said, then that's the current iPhone. You're using it. And I'm using a Johnny phone that costs 12,000 naira. Not because I don't know about the iPhone, but just because I wouldn't buy a phone that costs 400,000 as against buying a camera.
That's interesting. Now, let's take you further. You've come to be known as an educator in the industry. That tells me that as an educator in a creative industry, you also don't take your own learning lightly.
Yes.
How do you ensure, how do you live in such a way that you ensure that you're on the cutting edge of learning?
Okay, so I study every day. For the past 10 years in my life, there's no day I don't study. That's why I'm permanently physically stressed in my face, because every night I study. Initially it was because of the love for photography, but now because I don't want to face challenges where I'm being questioned in class and I cannot respond to the questions. So I always study. So I started doing workshops in 2013. I did one workshop with Lindsay Outline 213. I did another one with Lindsay Outline 215. I did I have like 5 international certifications. I remember even in 2010, when I was done with my studies in film school, and my professor, he was very fond of me. Basically, I think maybe because I was the only black guy in class. He told me, I told him my challenges, and he said, go back to your country. What I have taught you, it will take your country 20 years to know what I have taught you. 2013 is 2022. A lot of things that I was taught, Nigerians are not aware. And I can say that anywhere, anytime. The thing people are saying about, like in terms of retouching, they call it frequency separation. A lot of people are talking about it now, it's the wave. We knew this thing in 2011, 2010. Like we were taught in class. The truth is, you can never be too big to learn. And I've known that, and that's what has kept me at that cutting edge which you asked. You can never be too big to learn. one of my most amazing images you may talk about is an image that might have been curated by my assistant. Like I'm on set, I'm doing this, as the dean, thinking that, oh, this will come out amazing. And then my assistant taps my back and say, boss, take this one out, put this one in, bend this one this way. That's somebody I trained from being nothing to becoming a photographer. You wouldn't want to listen to such person. But then I listen. And then the images come out completely different. Just because I decided to learn from somebody I taught.
Share with us some of the, biggest projects that you've done and those that you've partnered with.
I think it was a job that came in from the UK, from an agency in the UK, and I shot for the Pantone company in 2017. Why I would say it was more like a very serious job was because I was faced with a lot of challenges trying to understand then how to deal with the international market, But in terms of delivery, in terms of the image, I was sure I was able to deliver. But in terms of the business side, communication with an international brand, interpreting briefs is different from the way we interpret briefs here in Nigeria, and all that. Communication basically, going back and forth with the emails and letting them understand that it's a business, not just a one-man photographer who is, so I think that's one of those very big jobs I did. It was called a collaboration because they said they couldn't afford me, so they want to collaborate with me. But in my career, that was the biggest that I've ever had, like financially. So it was big, but the photograph was just a very simple thing to deal with. The only challenges I was faced with was communication, how to present my brand as the brand they felt it was.
I find it very interesting. So there is the technical side of education for a photographer or a creative, and by a large standard, you were doing well technically, but then you had this experience with international brands, and then you saw that you had gaps in the area of business communication. But I believe that after that particular project with the London business, you've done quite a bit, internationally. What are the lessons that you have learned as a photographer who is in business, and that you feel, hey, guys, we need to pay attention to this in the area of business communication than we used to?
Okay, so the first thing that would frustrate you, because I used to have a couple of emails that are coming from outside the country. The first thing that would frustrate an African or a Nigerian photographer is how to respond to emails. It seems very, very minute, but it's more than just replying to an email. When somebody sends, for example, a brand sends you a mail and they're making inquiries, and you're like, thank you for reaching out to me. I would do this, I would do that, I would that. So you're already telling them that it's a one-man thing. They are reaching out to you as a brand, which you have claimed maybe on Instagram or Facebook, that you are a brand. And then you're responding like saying, I. So I learned that it's a we thing. So we appreciate you reaching out to us. We are going to look at your email. We're going to get back to you. We've seen the brief. It's more about a we thing. I mean, even if it's you alone, you have to package it and make it look. So the email is just like the first thing one would consider as a business, in terms of communication. It's what I noticed in my years of teaching. When I teach business of photography, I discovered that a lot of us are neglecting that aspect, of responding to emails. We still respond to emails like we're responding to our friends. We're not addressing it the right way, And secondly, in terms of invoicing, that one was a major issue for me, because how much would it cost for a shoot? I just responded to the email and I put my cost there, which I was supposed to send an invoice, And then the international standard invoice is different from our kind of invoice. So I had to relearn, I have two kinds of invoice. So I had anything that comes from the international community, I send them a kind of invoice. Because as a photographer, you have a space like I do have, and you have the camera, and you have all the equipment, you have all the assistants. It doesn't mean they're not supposed to be services they're not supposed to pay for. So on the international platform, it's more like, okay, this is my professional fee. This is the cost for equipment. I'm going to have 2 assistants on set. Per day, this is what they charge, right? I'm going to have a retoucher who's going to retouch the image. This is the charge. Then, miscellaneous. If you look at it the way we operate this way, it's different. How much would you charge for a photo shoot? 500K. If you say that, when you get an international mail, you need to actually defend what the 500K is for. So paying, I wasn't even used to saying I would pay. Normally I pay my assistants from the earnings at the end of the month. But they want to see that the assistants are being paid on set. If you have 3 people on set, they
Absolutely.
are being paid. And most of the time is hourly. Sometimes it's 8 hours, that's a day, which I wasn't used to. I was just used to telling
We just work.
Yeah, like, this is the price if we are shooting with you. But it doesn't work that way. Once they see it that way, they know that, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing. They're not confident anymore with your brand. So invoicing, first is an invoice, make payments, and then receipts. Contracts, very, very important. A Nigerian client might not take contracts very important or vital in the transaction of business, but on the international platform, you need to send contracts. Everybody's on one page. Everybody has an agreement and understand, So tomorrow we don't have back and forth.
Can you share with me what has been your most challenging brief?
Okay, so my most challenging brief was still the UK job where I had to work with the Pantone, because then I wasn't very conversant with colors. And if you've watched my trends since last year, I had decided to delve deeply into colors because the brief came in with a color palette, and I didn't understand what that meant. Like, they're telling you, this is what we want, this image, and this is the palette we want for the image. I couldn't put it together. It was a very big challenge to me. And it's not something you could say, oh, let me hop up into YouTube and then check and then respond to the mail. So I had to call everybody that I knew that would have an understanding about color paletting in terms of representation on an image. And I was given, a few advices which I used to pull the job through, though I knew I wasn't that very strong with it. So after that, I decided to delve into, colors and all that. I had a job again from Jamieson, the brand. They also sent me a brief with a color palette. And because I had become very experienced in it, I just dealt with it straight up.
Where did the passion for teaching photography come from?
For teaching, it was more like helping photographers to, gain more knowledge, share the knowledge that I already have, because I discovered that a lot of photographers could not afford to pay for knowledge abroad, because that's where you get the standards, trust me. So I decided to say, okay, let me start this thing. And I started, it was frustrating, trust me. Because the first class wasn't a class by me, it's a friend. My teaching started with a friend of mine called Promise Charles. He's a filmmaker in Nigeria here. So he had a class and he said I should come teach in the class in Enugu. So I went there and there were like 3 people. And I taught. And I liked the experience. And a lot of people did not want to come out for the class because I don't know if it was a financial constraint or maybe because it was me, but I was somehow vexed in my spirit. And I told the people there that I'm going to make sure that you guys take over the city. So I gave all that I had. I was answering questions even to the point of boarding the plane to leave, I was still answering questions from students. And I gave my all. And I'm very proud of those photographers today. They're the ones in charge when it comes to the East, not just Enugu.
All right, great. I'll touch more on your journey through the African continent, doing photography and also training people. But that will be after the break. All right, welcome back. You're still on to the Camera Lounge, and we're still speaking with our guest for today, Idongesit Usange, a lead photographer at Image Faculty. And he's been talking about his experience, his training, and of course, his practice of photography, both here in Nigeria and across the world. What's the future of photography, especially from the African perspective? What do Nigerian and African photographers need to focus on? What do we need to learn to know that, oh yes, we're ready for when there's a knock at the door?
Okay, so I think what we should do as African photographers is get glued to creative collaboration. Creative collaboration is when two creatives comes together. So I give, you take, you give, I take. An excellent stylist forgets money and decides to work with an excellent photographer who does not want to take money. The body of work we will put out there will attract the world to us. Most of us are in our space doing our thing alone, and that's not enough to make the world see us. You know, I might be a very good photographer, but then I will not be able to style, if I call myself a fashion photographer, to style it the way it will attract a Vogue editor, right? So if I come together with a good, stylist, a good makeup artist, and all of us just keeps the money aside, we just want to create body of work, which belongs to all of us, and we put it out there on our different platforms, it will definitely get to hit the world, and the world will definitely come to us.
So something has happened to you that I see. You've cultivated and developed a global mindset. If we must maximize the opportunities coming our way in Africa, it means we must develop a global mindset. How can people develop that?
Okay, so it's a personal thing. For me, I never looked at Image Faculty as a local brand. When I mean local, like a Nigerian brand, I've always looked at it as an international brand. So I take advantage of every little thing that will give me that international exposure, or anything that will help me, meet up with other people that are doing great work outside Nigeria.
What has been your most embarrassing experience as a photographer?
Okay, so I've had a couple of embarrassing moments as a photographer, but one that still astonishes me till today is a client I shot a wedding for, and when I had the deliverables delivered to the client, I got a feedback that I don't understand till today. So the bride calls me up and tells me, "Hey, bro, I'm so disappointed in your images because I delivered photo books and frames." And I'm like, "What's the issue?" She says she doesn't really understand what the issue is. I think, if you could tell me what the issue is, I would be able to, correct myself and then correct the mistake. She says the images look like Corel Draw. And if you know the software Corel Draw, it's a software for design. How does a picture look like? I couldn't understand, and she couldn't explain. We went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and I had to redo the whole project again. Like the deliverables, I had to print everything, redesign the photo book, re-edit what I was supposed to edit, and I delivered. This time they came to pick up, and she came with her husband. I felt terrible. Photographers can relate when you do something for a client and you put in all your best only for you to get a negative feedback. It was very embarrassing for me. When they came to pick up, The husband remained in the car. The wife came out. And she has been harassing me for months. So when she came, I gave her the stuff. She collected it. She didn't look at it. And she put it inside the trunk of the car. And she went to the front seat to sit again. Then the husband came out and banged the door. This is newly married couples. I said, called her by her name. I don't want to mention her name. Called her by her name. I said, no, you can't enter the car. You cannot enter the car. You must beat up image faculty. All through the time she was giving me pressure, I never heard from the husband. So when they were arguing, when he was ranting because the lady kept quiet, then he started making some statements like, you wouldn't let me rest. You would disturb my life from morning till night. Image faculty this, image faculty that, image faculty this, image faculty that. Now this is the image faculty. Arrest him. He gave you the pictures, you put it in, so you just collected the pictures and you put it inside the trunk. You didn't look at it. It's not Corel Draw again. So then I now understood that there was an issue when I did the first deliverables. It was very, 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 very embarrassing. Because you know when you photograph couples, you kind of become close, like kind of, there's that silent relationship, like you guys kind of be friends. And then it's like seeing your friend, your new friends 3 months later and it's in a fight. You know, it was so embarrassing for me, so embarrassing. I think like it was more of mixed feelings because I felt like the woman insulted my, my integrity and all that, but I took it in only for me to see that drama that day. And those are one of the reasons why I even had to quit, wedding photography, apart from the whole stress that is involved with it. So it's kind of very embarrassing to me. I have a couple of them, but so we don't want to waste time. Let's just keep that. Maybe you might want to think about it, how an image can look like Corel Draw. It gave me sleepless nights.
I can imagine. All right, so we'll take a short break now. When we come back, we want to see what's in your bag. Now we're going to do two major things in this segment. We are going to look at some of the amazing pictures that Idongesit has taken, and of course we want to see what is in his camera bag. So let's begin with these pictures. There's this one that looks like a kind of version of Vespa, yellow Vespa. Tell me about it.
Okay, so one thing that happens in my space, like I said, we are very unserious set of photographers that bring out very serious images. So this project was just one of our very unserious projects. When I say unserious projects, are projects that we didn't really put much into it. So this is us trying to, again, I was also trying to teach the people that work within my space, because I try to update them from time to time based on what I learned, how to use color palettes. So every color in this image was very, very intentional. We didn't have like a theme for it, but we just worked with the palette. So even when I posted it, I had issues giving it a name or a theme. So I called it Untitled, because I didn't have a name for it. So it's more like, taking complementary colors, from the color wheel and creating something. So we made the outfits. And if you look at the colors, they are actually very engaging in your eyes. And these are very, very deliberate things. So that when you're on social media and you're scrolling through and you're looking through pictures and you're just looking through it and then you see this, you will stop. Not because it's an excellent picture, it's just because the colors are harmonious. And then your eyes will tell you to stop.
And they're bold.
So, yeah, so you look at it again. So it's more like a promotional tool for me. So I just put it out there for people to see that I could create, editorial fashion content. And basically that's, the reason is more like using color palettes to create education and promotional material for my page.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's see.
Okay,
Wow, this is one of the most flamboyant pregnancy photography I've seen.
Thank you. So,
Lovely.
if I must speak about this one, this is me. This is how I started photography, though I've digressed a little bit. I used to do more of manipulations when I started, you know, picking bits and pieces from anywhere,
Yeah.
and then put it together to create an image. So this whole image was, you know, pre-planned. The outfit, again, we made it. Yeah, we made the outfit, and the whole feather thing that is there wasn't there in the picture. I just brought that in post-production.
Oh, wow.
So I made sure that the lighting, the way I will lit my subject, matches the way the feather was
Is
lit.
originally.
So once I bring in the feather, it takes an extra creative eye to know that the wing is not,
They are not in the same
yes,
place.
because it's lit differently. The shadows are the same the way it is with the wing. And then you can see this kind of thing down there, like the whole smoke thing. These are all done in post-production. So this is me like saying, let me get back to post-production. I mean, when I sent this to the client, she was super amazed because this is not what she shot in the studio. Like the crown that is there, she wasn't wearing no crown. So I put the crown there, put the wing there, put the whole smoke. I gave it that whole dark, moody vibe, you know, and very warm, you know. So this is me playing around manipulations because I know a lot of photographers are a lot into beauty, you know, but
Yeah.
photography is wide. There's a lot we can do, you know, with our tools, which is Photoshop. This is more like a very regular picture, but there's something very unique about it. That's why I want to speak about it. I've done a lot of beauty images, and everybody knows I'm very big on frequency separation, which is one of the techniques in smoothing out the skin. But I'm currently in 2022, I'm trying to push this notion that it's possible for you to lit an image without actually airbrushing the skin. If you lit it right, you don't need to do too much work on the skin. So I've been taught that technique many years ago and I've neglected it, but I'm bringing it back now because also I'm trying to break into the international community where they don't want, I remember a client telling me, we don't want the Nigerian style of edit, which is like an overbaked, you know, skin airbrush.
That's interesting.
Yes, so this image, like you see on the screen now, this is the raw image, right? And then I take it to the next level without airbrushing it. All you need to do is lit it right. You know.
So the hard work is in the production, not
yes,
post.
not post-production. Post-production is just as simple as pushing your sliders and you export the image out. But the work is you understanding light, the quality of light. Once you get the quality right, it's as easy as that.
Amazing. Let's see what you use to create these images.
Okay.
What's in your bag?
Like I said, I'm more of a fashion and portrait photographer. In my bag, I'm sure you guys already know what I should have in my bag because I'm a Sony ambassador.
Correct.
I have a Sony A7R4A. That's what it's called. It's such an amazing body to shoot with. And I have the 2470 G Master series. It's a great lens. So the reason why I choose the 24, because basically what I shoot with, this is my go-to lens anytime. It's an 85mm G Masters. This is what I shoot with any time of the day. It has an open aperture of 1.4. So if you leave me with 85mm, this is all I'm going to work with. But you know, as a Nigerian photographer, based on hustle, I need a 24-70 just in case something comes that is not in my journey. I can use this to shoot. But basically, this is what I shoot. 85mm, you know. So I mean, I know some people say like, is this all you have? 7 years ago, I had 2 camera bags filled up with a bag with camera and all sorts of lenses, another bag with another camera with all sorts of lenses. So if I'm going for a shoot, I drag 2 camera bags with me. And then I was feeling like that was what would make your images great. But right now, I just have 1 body, 2 lenses, and a good brain. So this works the magic for me. Basically, this is all I have in my bag. And in terms of lighting, I use the flash point. It's 600 watts. That's what I use basically. That's it. It's the simplest that. That's all I have in my bag. That's all I use to create all the images that you might see online.
Well, so that tells me something, that the better you grow, I don't want to say the older you grow.
Yeah.
The better you grow, the clearer your vision is, and the clearer you see what you need to do, what you want to do.
Yeah.
Was that it for you, or you're just growing up and you're moving towards simplicity?
Yeah, I throughout my struggle as a photographer, then photography equipment was very, very cheap, but I couldn't still afford it. And now photography equipment, because of the exchange rate in Nigeria, is very expensive. I mean, you would spend 3,000 to 4,000 US dollars to get a camera without even a lens. So it is better for me to learn all that I can learn, grab all the knowledge I can, and grab the tool that I can afford. So a tool that I can afford plus my knowledge makes me shoot amazing images. But if you have like a 10,000 USD worth of camera and a 5,000 USD worth of lens, but you have nothing upstairs, the images wouldn't transform to anything different. So for me, struggling up as a photographer, I just realized, look, you don't need these things anymore. You just need something basic to achieve what you want.
Great. So we cannot come to the house of the dean and not learn anything. So, guys, we're going to take another break now. When we come back, the dean is going to teach us something in photography. All right, welcome back. So we thought on this very particular edition that we'll put something extra for you guys, especially because we're here to see the dean himself, the dean at the image faculty. And on this segment, he's going to teach us something about photography, and we have chosen that he will tell us about how to use modifiers in our work as photographers. So the dean himself is here with me, and we have this huge modifier here, and he's just going to tell us how best to maximize these gears.
So in terms of photography, the basic thing you need to understand is lighting. Okay, once you understand lighting, you're already more than halfway getting to a great image, okay? But if you don't understand lighting, you can just be taking good images and it's fine by you. Then till you get to see a great image, you understand that what you shot was just a basic image. So in terms of lighting, there are so many kinds of modifiers, and all of them produce different quality of light, okay? And that is based on the type of modifier you're using. So if you have something like this is a 7-foot parabolic umbrella. The reason why I love it is because it has a white inside. So if I pull this open for you to see, the inner of this is white. So this helps to give me very soft light.
Well, there are some of them that have silver on the inside. What's the difference?
The difference with the silver one is the silver one is going to give you hard light. Okay, so if I'm doing editorial photography, editorial fashions and stuff like that, I want to do like hard lights. I'm very intentional about my lighting, so it depends on what I want to shoot. But being that I shoot a lot of portraits, I love to use this that is going to give me soft light. So there are these principles that the bigger the modifier, the softer the quality of light. The smaller the modifier, the harder the light. Okay, so also when it's white inside, it is soft. When it's silver inside, it is hard.
All right.
Also, we have the distance. The closer the distance of the modifier to the subject, the softer the light, the farther it is, the harder the light. And this affects the image in terms of shadows. So why I love this is because it's big, it has white inside. All I need to do is to bring my subject very close to it. So basically when I'm shooting portraits, my subject is always very close.
Oh.
So most of the times my modifier is in my picture, I take it out in post-production.
I
yes.
see.
So for me to be able to shoot an image where I don't need to do much in terms of editing, I use this guy. So like I said earlier on, the bigger, the softer. White inside, it will make it softer. And if you bring the person closer, it makes it softer. So my principle is, if it is big, it's soft. If I now use a big one with a white inside, then it's super soft. Now I now use a big one with a white inside and bring my subject closer to it, it now becomes super, super soft light. So you see those images of mine, before I even start thinking of editing, I'm already done using my light, you know, to...
So allow me cut in. So more like one of the pictures that we saw, that you said you don't need much of airbrushing.
Yes, because...
You might not even need to use airbrushing at all.
Yes, because the light is already very soft. If it is hard, you have more blemishes. For example, if you have like 10 pimples on your face and I show you with a very soft light, it will reduce the visibility of the pimples. If I use hard light, it will exaggerate it the more. So the reason why people are struggling with trying to clean up the face is because they have exaggerated blemishes, and that's coming from hard light. So that's why this is more of my favorite ones. They are the smaller ones. There's also a grid that you can put over it to give the light some form of direction. Okay, but basically this is what I love for my portraits and also for fashion too.
So in terms of, yes, we've seen how this is set up. In terms of positioning, does that really depend on what theme you're working with, or how big or small the subject is, or what determines your positioning? Is there a principle around that?
Yeah, so positioning of my light, basically my go-to is always Rembrandt lighting, which is 45 degrees away from. So if my subject is here 45 degrees this way, so this is where my light is. The reason is because I want my light to wrap around the subject of the face. So there's this gradual fall off, you know, and this is in shadow, but not very deep in shadow. That's because it's a big modifier. If it's a smaller one, then we'll have that, you know, that fall off. The shadows are going to be more deeper. So I use a bigger one and the fall off is less. Sometimes I might take you closer to a bounce, which will fill up the shadow. But in terms of direction, it's always 45 degrees to my subject. So it wraps the face. It makes the image look three-dimensional, as against being just flat, like light poured on the subject. So I want to give it some form of direction.
So as a general rule, definitely it's going to be your key light.
Yes.
But you can use other lights, whether hair lights or backlight or secondary lighting.
Yes. So this is always my key light, and then I can always add something to help with the hair, backlight, or I want to go extra creative, I can use a snoot. So I can use the snoot to create whatever I want to create, but this is always my key light. If I'm doing beauty, I just take this guy all the way up. It's called the butterfly technique. So I keep it this way and the light falls on the face. And then that helps to shape the face, because you have the highlight all the way down here. You have it here, have it here, have it here, which is basically what the makeup artist takes about 1 hour, 1 hour, 30 minutes to get done.
Yeah, so cost is something in photography. A lot of photographers would like to have this, but perhaps for cost.
Yeah.
What's the next best thing a photographer can use aside from this?
Well, I feel like whatever you're working with, you just need to understand the principle. When I couldn't afford this, I had a smaller modifier, but then I had a bed sheet, which I pulled off my room, which is a white bed sheet, so I shoot through it. It's a small modifier, the principle remains the same. Now the bed sheet is now the big one. So I keep the bed sheet in front and I put the light through. So it goes through the bed sheet to my subject. So, I mean, you don't need to spend much. You can just buy white fabric, you know, and put it there. Shoot enough, and then you can afford this one.
Great. Well, that's going to be the class. You didn't particularly pay for this, so it's going to be it's going to be a very short class. But I hope that you've learned a thing or two about the modifiers, the different sizes and types that we have. But of course, you know where exactly to get this. Needless to say, Camera Joint, Nigeria's #1 camera store. Yeah. So on this note, I want to say a very big thank you to you.
Thank you.
The Dean himself at the Image Faculty, Idongesit. Thank you very much for coming on the show today. And until we see you again, I'm Olukayode Alayande. Bye now. Lights, camera, action.